Hey y'all, what's happening? Chinese here, also known as China L. Costin, actress and independent filmmaker here in Brooklyn. Today I am joined by PK Dow in Chicago, and we will be doing a film reaction to the classic Chicago romantic drama, Love Jones. It's also classified a comedy. I'm going to read the synopsis from IMDb, and it also lists the principal actors, and then I'm going to bring PK in to introduce himself and then express why he wanted to do this kind of film. Okay, so per IMDb, it says, Darius Love Hall is a young Black poet in Chicago who starts dating Nina Mosley, a beautiful and talented photographer, while trying to figure out if they've got a love thing or are just kicking it. They hang out with their friends, talking about love and sex. Then Nina tests the strength of Darius' feelings and sets a chain of romantic complications into motion. It was released in 1997. It's an hour and 44 minutes, rated R. And it's written and directed by Theodore Witcher, also known as Teddy Witcher, out of Chicago. The principal cast include Lorenz Tate as Darius Love Hall, Nia Long as Nina Mosley, Isaiah Washington as Savon Garrison, the great Lisa Nicole Carson as Josie Nichols, Bill Bellamy as Hollywood, Leonard Roberts as Eddie, Bernadette as Sheila Downs, and Khalil Kane as Marvin Cox, and countless others. So PK, why did you want to do a film reaction on this genre of film? And then I selected Love Jones in particular, but go ahead. And tell everybody your name and what you do or whatever.
All right, this is PK, and I enjoy being on this show. I'm a film enthusiast, and I just enjoy movies and discussing them and acting in them when I get the opportunity, and working behind the scenes as well. I love everything that is made up in the film world. So the reason why I wanted to do this genre, because I actually wanted to have someone else on with us in order to have a female and male discussion and debate about this film. But you know, the other person that I had in mind wasn't able to make it, unfortunately. So the show must go on. So we're going to keep doing what we're here to do. So it's just going to be us. We're going to just talk about it. I just think from a different perspective, this type of movie is generally not something that I go in for. It's in my collection, but I hadn't seen it probably since it came out. or sometime thereafter. That's why I was like, you know, it's not, you know, this type of romantic slash comedy. I still think it's a little bit more drama than comedy, but
yeah.
They infused Bill Bellamy. He did his best to try to be the comedic to lighten up the mood, but it was better served as a drama. So I just want us to talk about it and see how it goes.
Yeah, I would classify this more of the romance. Unlike PK, folks, I have seen this movie repeatedly since it was released in 1997. I went to the cinema in Hyde Park to see this movie, and I fell in love with it in 1997, and the love has not died. Okay. I love this movie for many reasons. The first one being is set in the city I was born in, Chicago. Let's just dive in. I watched it again yesterday because I hadn't seen it in like probably, I don't know, 6 months. And for me, that's a long time. Hadn't seen it in 6 months, 5 to 6 months. So I'm like, let me revisit it. And I love that I love the way it opens up. when it opens up, I feel a sense of calm, and I'm immediately transported into Chicago. Although I live in Brooklyn now and been living in New York for 13 years, it transports me right back into Chicago. It opens up on a skyline at dusk. I'm sorry, at dawn. And that Deion Ferris song, come on, Hopeless, and my heart just melts, because it's like, oh, this is about to get juicy. You just feel it's like something soulful and honest and very cultural is about to pop off. And I wasn't disappointed. When I love how the music, it opened up like various shots of Chicago, primarily the South Side. I mean, the downtown is established as the L in Chicago, the sky and the beautiful skyline of Chicago. Then the South Side of Chicago, like record stores and storefront churches, and then the people in the community of every generation. And then it zooms in on Nina and her ex-lover, engaged in a passionate kiss, and you would think that the movie is going to center around this couple, and then you discover it is not centered around this couple, because as it unfolds, Nina and her best friend, played by Lisa Nicole Carson. Let's just say, I'm going to keep saying the actor's name. So Nia Long is, she and Lisa Nicole Carson are packing her things. Clearly, her and her ex have broken up. And she looks at a photograph and she dumps it in a box. And then they start talking about her reaction to falling in love. You want to take over, PK, your reaction to any part of the movie? Or yeah,
I can. I just wanted to concur about what you said. Visually, and listen to that song, and it hopeless, and the line like a penny with a hole in it. It's like you can't get any more devalued than that. And then the fact that the imagery was in black and white.
Yes, thank you.
It just having film in black and white brings a certain earthy grit to it that you just can't get with color, and where a lot of people are not accustomed to seeing black and white films now. So it was a good contrast and a good way to open. So I thought that was amazing. And then, like you said, it does take you, it's Chicago, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly that make up in any city, but it gives it its character. So the character was established early on, and like you said, you were kind of thrown by the romantic kiss in the movie, but you're quickly understand that it's a recent breakup. She's moving things, so it's change. It's some change going on right now. And it's a good segue into how they establish where they are mentally in terms of relationships. Okay, and I thought that was kind of revealing, that the fact that she's like dead on relationships. I went through this mess with this guy. It's played out, it's overrated, time to do me, so to speak. And so that establishing part, I thought that was actually pretty good visually, and in terms of the acting and scripting. It was a good introduction to the film. It kind of made me want more.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that at the start of the film, she is, as Lisa referenced, like she becomes like this cynic about love, romantic love, and like, yeah, okay, that's whatever. And then also, I want to also recognize the casting, how these two beautiful Black women, they have this very natural look about them. I don't want to say girl next door, but just like Black women who are relatable, have this a very earthy, natural. I mean, they wear nice, natural looking makeup, but they're relatable and warm. And I can see myself being friends with those two ladies.
Right.
right? Right. So they weren't so like detached and like, oh, I can't see them living in Chicago. Like, so shout out to the casting of those two ladies. And then we're brought into this world, this poetry, the spoken word poetry world. It's so funny, PK, because I used to go to Spices, which is where the club, it's kind of, and Teddy Witcher, Theodore Witcher, the writer director, I remember meeting him in Chicago when I was much younger. And Spices with the club, we go every Monday night and hear spoken word poetry. Sam Greenlee, the novelist and screenwriter.
Oh, yeah. I met him.
Yeah. Yes, he would be there. And at the time I didn't know who he was. And we would stand up, they were like, Sam Greenlee is here. You know, let's recognize, oh, you know, give respect to him. But I noticed that when we go into the poetry world and we meet Darius Love Hall, who becomes her love interest, AKA Lorenz Tate, and meet Lorenz Tate's friends, there it goes from black and white, or from when it goes from a very soft blue tint filter on the movie. And I don't know if it's because, I don't know if Nina is feeling like blues. In blues, you talk about heartache, disappointment in relationships, but I don't know if that blue tint must be intentional. What are your thoughts? Have you ever noticed a blue tint, a soft blue tint?
I didn't notice the blue tint, but what I did notice that he did contrast. It was a lot of contrast in that movie. And the blue could like be, in fact, like what you stated, could be reminiscent of where she is mentally. But it also could be considered something cool or cold.
Yes.
So, and then now because remember, like you said, she's cynical. They're like, you know, I'm love, I'm off. I'm just here with my girl. So, but she steps into this world where they're you know, romanticizing love in their poetry. So she's in a place where she's initially has a wall up, or she's rejecting, but she's engulfed in that feeling, immersed in that pull that the poetry and the romance and the sexual overtones of the language overtakes her.
Yeah. And it's a passionate, and what I love about the club scene too is it's a passionate, soulful vibe. Like all these beautiful Black people of various hues, various hair textures, various hairstyles, various vibe. You can't get more Black American than this movie. Like you can't. And it's like a celebration of who we are in this country. This movie is just classic for many reasons. And I love that they when we meet at Darius Love Hall and he goes on stage and he recites that beautiful song, Brother to the Night. He's accompanied by some jazz. Yeah, so we were buffering for a second, but we're back.
Okay.
We're back. We're just buffering. We're just ride out the wave. But I was saying, okay. I like that Lorenz Tate is his poetry is accompanied by three or two jazz musicians. There's a bassist, a stand-up bassist, right? A drummer.
Yeah, and a drummer. And I think somebody was on percussion.
On percussion.
Yeah, they had somebody on the board. Yeah, but I think in his set, I was percussion, if I'm not.
Yes. And that poem was so like, it was so sensual, and but it was so visual too. And it talked about like, it was kind of mythical too. I love the poem. Like it just made me want, I want somebody to write a poem for me and recite a poem to me. They met one another at the bar, and in that instant he was able to write a poem inspired by his interaction with her. And it was so like, it was so like impactful.
Mhm.
It just made my heart melt. How did that poem as a man, how did it, I mean, you're a man, how did it impact you? It's kind of
So
weird.
that's a poem. No, it wasn't, because to me it was like a poem. Say that poem in the score. You know what I mean, that's a, you know, is gonna stir some emotion in the female's audience.
Yes.
And when it's time after your cycle and you put something on that, because he said he want to be ass in his your in your you,
And the
how
funk in your
close to glory is that? You know what I'm saying? He right be right there.
yeah.
So and then also, like I said, it was powerful, and it spoke to her, and also kind of broke down that wall that she had built up. You know, just
So we're having some buffering issues tonight, but just hold tight, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us.
okay.
Yeah. That song is in my head. So I don't see your video. I don't see your video right now. I hear you though.
Okay.
So yeah, just waiting for PK to join me again. Goodbye, yesterday. Hey, just can't get around. Yeah, I can't see your video right now. There we go. Now I can see you. Yep. I can see you. So I like, okay, so it was interesting because when Darius was reciting that poem, like at first Nina was kind of she looked flattered. And then as he starts to get closer to the end of the poem, she looked pissed. And then when they went outside, and her friend Lisa Nicole called out like, "Oh, so you said something like, yeah, so much for love, huh? Like it looked like you seem to be open to the possibility of a thing, according to your reaction to his poem." When they went outside and she met Nina and Lisa met Lorenz Tate and his friends. He was like, "I hope you enjoy my poem." And she's like, she wrote on his hand, "Love," because I guess she was like, yeah, it's easy to write a poem about sex and passion. But what you know about love, can you write a poem about love? And I don't think he was in a place he hadn't really experienced, I don't think, true love. So how can you write about what you don't know? You can write about what you hope to experience. What are your thoughts about that interaction, that scene?
I mean, I think you were spot on with that, and that's what it was. And I think
What were you saying, PK?
yeah, I was just saying it was a good. I think it was a good establishing scene as far as terms. He, so to speak, shot his shot, and she countered him with, the fact that, well, what do you know about what's real? What do you know about love? And it's like you say, as we get to know his character more, we know that he's been pretty much never had been in a serious or long-lasting, long-term relationship. So you only, like you say, you only can sometimes discuss or talk or write about what you know. And if you've never experienced love or never opened yourself up to the possibility of love, you know, your concept is not there. So the physicality of relationship is the only thing you could base it on, because that's what probably majority of your experiences are from a physical standpoint with these, you know, various women that you date along the way.
Yeah, I appreciate too that the director established really early on who his antagonist would be. His antagonist was Bill Bellamy, Wood, right?
Yes.
Wood was a hater out the gate. It was established.
Hey.
It was established at the gate that he was envious of his poetry talent, and he knew that poetry was in fact an aphrodisiac for some women. You know, it was a means to make, I mean, that makes you magnetic in many ways, that you have a way with words. And so that takes a particular type of skill set and a sensibility that appeals to some women, myself included. And Larenz Tate had a quiet swag about himself that was, and a confidence that was also appealing, I'm thinking, to Nia Long's character. And Bill Bellamy, he was so conspicuous in his approach. Like he didn't have like quiet swag about him, you know. He was so on the nose, and that is not, sometimes that's off-putting for women.
Okay.
Yeah. But I love how Larenz Tate, the next time we see them at a record store, and again, music was very crucial to the storytelling. That soundtrack was fire. So shout out to the sound scorist, the music supervisor, because nothing but gems. Like this, the soundtrack was almost as important as the storyline, similar to Car Wash and Claudine and Let's Do It Again and Uptown Saturday Night. The soundtrack was a very crucial component of the film, and what drew a lot of people to even want to see the film, in addition to the story, of course, and the actors. But they met at a record store, which is very classic. And shout out to record stores. We know they barely exist. They're almost like dinosaurs nowadays. But they met in the record store, and she was in the mood for the Isley Brothers. And then he asked, can he put on, who did he put on? Was it Charlie Parker?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think
Charlie,
it's Bird. Yeah, Charlie Parker.
So he put on jazz music as opposed to R&B music. And to me, PK, what I noticed this time around, she said, it's sad. He said, I think it's melancholy. I think there's a difference. And to me, it's like, she was in a space, she was in a sad space, but he was in a reflective state. So to me, that's why they had a different reaction to the song. What are your thoughts about that interaction or that scene?
I thought it was a good scene. He did some things, like you say, in a smooth kind of commanding way. You know, like when she tried to talk and he didn't, he had to stop and be like, just listen, take it in. You know, he is like, allow yourself to be, you know, immersed in what we're listening to, what the sounds that he's putting out. And when she did, you know, she kind of had a little facial expression or whatever the case may be. And she took the time to listen to it before they had the little conversation about the tone or the mood of the song.
Mhm.
And like I said, that was also probably showing that they're in two different mental spaces right now.
Mhm.
You know, two different mental spaces.
Mhm.
And once he approached her to get her number straight out and talk to her and try to take her out, she was like, bad timing. You know, bad timing. So that there again, that makes sense because we're not on the same page right now. We're not really vibing. It's an attraction, that's
Right.
definitely, but we're not vibing right now due to circumstances and
Mhm.
where we are in life, you know.
Yeah, because she even said it's nothing personal. You know, without going into detail, like I don't need to tell you that I just broke up with my fiance. You don't need to know all that. Just know
Right.
it's not personal and it's not a good time. I like that you said that there was an attraction there. Yes, but that wasn't that wasn't enough for him. He had to see this woman who was not acting desperate, who was not all giddy. She had a swag about herself as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he was enamored by her essence, and or at least what she had been given off to him thus far. And he was determined, so he reached out or asked his best friend who worked at the store, the record store, to get the address. Of course, she was like, "Don't do that, because this woman could have a man. Leave it alone. Leave it be." He refused to fall back. Next, you know, he shows up at her place, and
but not empty-handed.
smart, because I know the writer was like, well, how can we get him to reconnect with this woman and it makes sense,
right?
And like you said, him not showing up, I like, it's like, oh, and I got your CD, because when he did show up. Go ahead and talk about PK when he showed up and how she was.
I mean, she was like any person or woman I would feel would react under those circumstances. What the hell are you doing at my door? Period. But she was still kind of inviting at the same time. You know, it was intentful that there was no chain on the door.
Right.
She opened the door beyond a crack, so she engaged him. But she still presented herself in a manner like, you know, make account for yourself. Why are you here? You know, how did you get my information? And he came clean. And then in the process, he had that Isley Brothers CD, which speaks a lot to a person in general. I'm not gonna say just a female. It's like you in tune with her wants and needs. Okay. She didn't ask him for the CD. She made reference to it in the store. She left, you know, without getting what she really wanted. So he made sure he fulfilled that. And when he presented himself to her for that opportunity to make her acquaintance and establish something with her. And he made his way into her home, and then they had their moment together. So I thought it was daring, it was risky, it was daring, and it was cool too, you know. And he was really trying, you know.
I think she ordered the Isley Brothers CD and was waiting for it to come in, and he just happened to. I don't know if he checked with his friend and said, did the CD come in this way? I can just take the CD to her as opposed to her coming down to the store. Am I wrong?
Oh, maybe I missed that part.
Yeah,
because you really didn't have a understanding of what the time frame was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I couldn't tell, you know, what type of duration it was. So that may be the case. You know, I just assumed that he picked it up for, you know, it really didn't say like a week later or, you know, had an idea how long had, you know, transpired since she was there.
Yeah. So they did vibe, and he discovered that she's in fact a professional photographer, that she has a similar style of Gordon Parks, a famous Black American photographer.
Mhm.
So they're both artists. They're both professional artists. Oh, we forgot to mention Darius Love Hall. You know, he was in fact a writer for a newspaper in Chicago. So
Yes.
that was his means of, that was his profession. And
Mhm.
then he chose to retire from writing for the paper and work on his book of poetry,
Novel.
his novel. Thank you,
Yeah.
his novel.
Mhm.
Yes. And
Yeah,
she,
I think it was a novel, not a
yes,
poetry.
yes, you're right. It was a novel. And she was working as an assistant to a photographer.
Mhm.
And she had an attitude because she was to order lunch for him, but in fact, she ended up just ordering something that was totally not what he wanted. And he was like, you just don't have the temperament to be an assistant because she's a photographer. She doesn't want to be an assistant. She wants to be the photographer. And her attitude, her stank attitude showed up and he just fired her. So
Right.
now they're both have all this time on their hands. I mean, his time should be devoted to writing his novel and her time should be
Right.
devoted to finding photography work. So they
Right.
both have a lot more free time on their hand. And he invited her out to a get together with his friends, and he picks up on his motorcycle. And I love that he picks up on, because when he said, I'll come by and get you at 8, I'm assuming he's gonna pick him up in his car. But in fact, it's a motorcycle, and how romantic and sexy were them riding on Lakeshore Drive. Only somebody from Chicago would know that's LSD.
Right.
Or somebody who's visited Chicago a lot.
Yeah.
On Lakeshore Drive, seeing beautiful Lake Michigan, and it was very sexy. And I had never, outside of Purple Rain, I hadn't seen a Black couple, ride on a motorcycle.
Right. And if you think about it, what's more intimate than that? Because, you have to get physical, you have to get close, bodies.
Yeah.
So that's way
Trust.
better than, yeah, because he has her life in his hands. And so I think that just that alone, like you said, that's sexy. It added a level of intimacy just by them traveling to the date together. As opposed to somebody getting in a car and, sitting next to each other, coming up with some small talk. They had to really take in, because you can't talk on a motorcycle. You could try, but it's just hard. And but you have to take in the scenery, and you have to get close. And she has to feel him and feel safe, and he has to make sure she's in tune with him as he moved with the bike. So it had that lends itself to the date, establishing that closeness already.
And riding a motorcycle, there's a danger element. There's an element of danger, and it's like, I guess you have to hold him. You have to be in an embrace.
Right.
Right. And so your heartbeats are like at the same time, and it's like you feel like a sense of comfort. Like, so that was bravo, because it would have been typical for him to pick up in a car, right? We've seen it a million times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a good change of pace.
That was a good change of pace. And again, a nice little tint of blue over the skyline. And then she goes to get together, and it's, again, she gets introduced to his crazy friends. I like the friendship between Larenz Tate and Isaiah Washington's character.
Right.
Isaiah was a more mature person. He's married with a child. I think he was the only one out of the group who was married with a child.
Right.
So
and he's older as well. Yeah.
Yes, he was older. He was, yeah. So what did you think about that scene? That scene was very lively.
Yeah, they were, their discussion, I draw a blank on the topic of the discussion, but the discussion was about
God is a woman.
God and woman, and then how when Larenz Tate brought to his point of view, how Bill Bellamy kind of switched and made like he's just trying to score points with his date, as opposed that could be his genuine perception, because a lot of people believe that as
Okay, so we're gonna resume the discussion about the scene to get together with the Lorenz saying that he believes God is a woman. Go ahead and speak on that, PK.
Yeah, and I was saying a lot of people tend to have that belief, so it's not like foreign to everybody, mm-hmm. but the difference is that he had a different perspective from everybody, and instead of just leaving it at that and exploring it, Bill Bellamy's character Wood decided to make a dig at him about it, saying something to the fact that, well, he's just trying to score points with his date. And not really exploring the fact that, hey, let's have this discussion. What makes you think God is a woman? What makes you think God has to be a man? And then when they got into it, Wood, his only contribution to it was a off-color joke about if God was a woman, you know, they would apply the penis to the face, the male's face. So it's like, like you saying, he's always contrary or trying to contradict something that Lorenz Tate's Love's character is trying to portray or come off as. He want to basically take the shine off him any kind of way he can. And it's people with in cliques, it's always some type of dynamic like that with the fellas, you know, and his character
and it's low key too.
Yeah, low key, but everybody knows where it's coming from. You know, it's just they never had a chance to reckon with that tension and that hostility. You know, as kids, sometimes, you know, you get the opportunity to, you know, basically fight it out or talk it out or argue it out. And they hadn't come to that. They just tolerate each other, you could tell, in those spaces, because they don't have to interact with each other more intimately because it's always in a group setting. So you could take what he has to say and dismiss it because somebody's going to come back with something else to move the conversation along or move the situation along where they don't have to confront, you know, their differences. So I thought him establishing him as, like you said, the antagonist early, and how his character consistently throughout the movie showed it, kind of reminiscent of what we saw in Once Upon a Time in America. And when we had that discussion, I was saying that some guys in your clips, like I'm in a fraternity, and I know I had some brothers that exhibit some of those same qualities. They don't necessarily want the woman, but they want to see if they could get your woman. And
it's a sport, right? It's a sport.
Exactly. It's a sport to them. So, and then you see how, okay, we jumping ahead, but well, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, so that whole dynamic, him establishing that, lets us, you know, see how what took place along the lines, down the lines in the film, why something like that could happen, and it was plausible, and nobody stepped back and said, hey, is this something I should be doing? You know?
Yeah. And we fast forward to, they're enjoying themselves, they're getting more comfortable with one another. Nia Long, that's right. And then they leave to get together. And then he asks her, you know, if you like reggae music? Yes. Right. Let's go to the north side. I miss that about Chicago, saying, hey, you want to go to the north side? You know, I really do miss that. She essentially, well, I'm sorry, even prior to that, she established that she writes poetry as well.
Right.
That it was a Sonia Sanchez shout out moment. And I love that the poem that they chose to use, the poem they chose for Nina to recite, is a poem of sensuality.
Okay.
A poem that's connected to, at some point, making love. I stretched him out on my bed sheets and I could, you know, smell him, or whatever she said, similar to that, because later on at night, they make love.
Right.
It was a nice little foreshadow to what was about to occur. But she agrees to go to great reggae music. And again, another moment for them to be more intimate. It's an intimate type of activity. You have to be close and let your guards down and be sensual, right? And the reggae music can be very sensual and sexy, another sexy environment.
And the wild hair is kind of, at the time it's changed venues, but at the time it was like a shotgun space, so it was very small, and the band is right on top of you, and you can feel the music in your body pulsating through. So it's very sensuous, very, when you have a good dance partner, it can stir up a lot of emotion, a lot of intense feelings, of romance, or the potential for romance.
It has a very juke joint, sexy, kind of feel, right?
Yeah.
So, and they're laughing and whispering, and then you have to whisper in each other's ear, which is another means of being close, like your mouth on somebody's ear, and it's like all that little foreplay that's happening, right?
Right.
And the sexy red lights. It's just creating this environment of allure for the two of them. Which is, again, this is one of the sexiest movies that I've seen, but not overt, right?
Right.
Yes. And
tastefully.
Very tasteful, very tasteful. And then he takes her home, and they exchange niceties. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then they go in for that kiss. And it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Eventually, he wants to go upstairs and talk. And we know talk is code for what, PK? What is talk code?
Let's get busy. And the beautiful part about that scene was he couldn't even get it out, because once he said talk, he's busting up laughing, because you know why I want to get up there. Okay, we're gonna talk.
She know it, he know it.
Right. But guess what? Sideline. I did that.
You did?
I did that in this year in college. Just segue, but she made me stick to it. She made me stick to it. You said, because she liked me for a while, but I was backing off because I actually was with somebody. But when I did invite her over, she had people in the background. She said, "What you want to do?" And said and I thought that was kind of crass, because I'm not that kind of guy. So I said, "No, just come over and talk." So we actually got in bed, and she made me talk. So but I've used that once.
Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute. Yeah. Like you said, I like that they both know it was subtext.
Right.
I love that they both laughed. Just bravo.
Right. It was a genuine moment, and it almost, that to me, it almost like I wasn't watching the movie at that point. You know what I mean? I was just watching something real unfold. And like I said, and it was relatable, and the fact that and that inserting that laugh, that just, to me, that made that scene. It really made that outdoor scene, and the kiss was awesome too. And as far as a kiss in a movie kiss, that was a good movie kiss. It was a very good movie kiss. Yeah, and you could see the passion was there on both parts, on both ends, and the way it unfolded was only natural. It's like what she said when she had to come clean to her friend talking about the incident. She was like, "You hoe," and she was like, "Hey, this girl had to do what she had to do."
Man, yo, okay, so I'm glad you brought up the whole laughter. It was like you at that point, you stopped watching a movie, you just watch, something so natural. I think, I don't know where you were, but I think whoever was watching that movie, when they both laughed, I laughed because it's like, come on, like
Right.
you can't write those moments in the screenplay. You can't write them.
Right.
Those actors were just in tune
Mm-hmm.
with the truth
Yeah.
of the moment. You can't
Yeah.
write that. You can't write
Yeah.
it. Let's get to the next morning. We'll skip over the love scene. It was a very passionate love scene.
Right.
But I like the imagery of her. We see her legs walk down the steps. Again, very classy.
Mm-hmm.
Very classy.
Right.
He's cooking her breakfast in her big kitchen, and she's surprised he's cooking her breakfast. She didn't ask him to. He took it upon himself to do that.
He was
Again,
motivated. He
what
was
happened?
motivated and inspired.
Inspired. Thank you.
Inspired by her to do that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. And that exchange, I love that scene because the writer again flipped the script. Because generally speaking, you hear the woman saying, "Oh, I bet it's going to be the last night. I won't hear from you. You're going to pretend like nothing happened." But the guy said it to her. I love that scene. What are your thoughts about that? The flip.
I mean, like I said, it was the flip thing. I thought it was appropriate, and I can see, you know, he was in that type of headspace anyway. Because if you think about it, if you go to that lengths that he went through to get to know her and get to get that first opportunity to date her, that, you know, doing that's something natural. That would come natural because he's already, because he was in his conversations, he already looked at her as something special, something different.
Wrote a poem right like this.
Yeah, and also he elaborated his his feelings about her towards the Isaiah Washington character, and then he joked it off. But like we say, there's truth in jest. There's always truth, some grain of truth in jest, and so he was in that headspace. So it made it nice that it was like that little switch, or like you said, change of pace, instead of seeing the female downstairs cooking the meal and trying to, satisfy the man's, sexual appetite as well as his metaphoric, physical appetites. But that was, a good change of pace, and she received it well too.
She did.
That's what made it.
Yeah, and then like you said, the car scene between she and her, Lisa Nicole, her best friend. That car scene, I'm sorry, PK, but it is classic. I mean, their exchange, that dialogue. Lisa Nicole Carson was magnificent. Her humor, her delivery was both of them. They had great friendship chemistry. When she said, his boop boop just spoke to me. And when she said, she took that beat and she said, "What it say?" I mean, give her an Oscar for that interpretation, just that interpretation alone. For that one scene, give her an Oscar.
Right.
Because there's so many ways she could have delivered that line, but the way she delivered it was genius. Genius. Right. I'm a big fan of Lisa Nicole. Clearly, you see, I'm a big fan of her.
Yeah, I like her too. I think she's a pretty young lady. I know she had some issues and stuff in her career. And but I was a fan of her beauty and her work on camera. But just
adjust your light, PK. Adjust your light a little bit, Lord. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
But all right. So this is like a little sideline. I want to just interject this real quick as far as Nia Long. Okay, I saw Nia Long in other movies and everything, and she's an attractive young lady, right? But you know how, guys be like, okay, this is my fantasy girl, and this one is my fantasy girl. She never was that person, right? But for some reason, in this movie, and I've seen her in movies that I like, The Best Man, and I really like and enjoy her and everything. But for some reason, I forget what scene, but maybe it was the scene in the jazz, not the jazz club, in the spoken word club, that I saw her, and it was like she looked magnificent in that movie. In that instance, she had this, I would say, like a homegirl quality, but it was like it still exuded like a beauty. Yeah, a beauty, a class, but a beauty that I never saw her in the light. You know what I mean? And it really struck me. It's like, damn, she is bad. You know what I mean? But I've seen thousands of movies. I've even seen this movie, and I was like, okay, that's Nia Long. But at that instant, rewatching this, that's why I like doing this with you, because it's like I can revisit some stuff, that I hadn't seen in a while. And it's like when I saw that, I was like, wow, she's beautiful. So I just want to interject that it's like I saw her in a whole different light. So whether it was, that time in her, youth where she was at most attractive, I don't know what you want to call it, but she was just gorgeous. And then the movie made you, understand why he's doing what he's doing. She's a prize. She's something to behold, So, and I just want to, bring that out because, like I said, it just struck me like that, in watching that film, that scene. I believe it was the scene when you first got her profile and then her full face.
Yes, and she smiled.
And it was like, dang, she's gorgeous, in that instant. So, so I just want to interject that.
Nia Long is very beautiful, very talented. And it's like the more they got to get to know one another and really vibe with each other, being comfortable and appreciate each other's artistry and intelligence and playfulness, then it gets down to the wire. Then the director said, okay, y'all, it's time for conflict. They've been cruising along, but now let's introduce the conflict. The conflict is, what's the conflict, PK?
The boy comes back in, her fiance comes back into play. He basically wants to try to reestablish their relationship.
Yep.
And he came back with some tickets for her to visit him in New York. Now, I thought her approach to that whole situation was faulty.
Why so?
Okay, and that's just my personal thing about people tend to want to test relationships. Okay, you shouldn't construct a test in your relationship. Okay, and for the fact that when she had a discussion with
Lisa Nicole
Carr, that she's like, basically, I want to see how he reacts to this, and if he says one thing, I'll do another. I'll do this. If he doesn't react to it, I'll go. So you're playing right now. Okay, and you shouldn't put your lover or your person you're in a relationship with in that type of trick bag to test the relationship. And him, from his standpoint, when he got the news that that's what she wanted to do, she kind of put him in a box because, number one, she hadn't fully opened herself up to how she felt about him in the relationship.
True.
And neither did he.
Right.
So now you're going to give me this one moment in time where if I say something, maybe you might take it as, oh, he's just trying to keep me. from doing
Trying
what
to
I got to
control
do,
me.
trying
Yeah.
to control me. So it's a lose-lose situation, you know. And I thought from that standpoint, the way the movie played out, I thought it was bogus. For her to put that relationship in that situation. Because I'm from the standpoint, when we done. So I'm in that headspace. You know,
Okay.
I could love you till the cows come home, but when we're done. And I would, you know, wouldn't entertain anything like that. So
But she was forthright. She did say to him, you know, I'm Darius, I care about you. So that's why I'm telling you, because I'm not trying to play you.
right.
Because she could have been like, you know, what, but she's just like, I care about you. And that's why I wanted to tell you this is what it is.
But she really don't want to go.
She don't, but she's still like, she doesn't want to have regrets either, that, you know what, she didn't try to see if they still have something there. So if she didn't tell him, then we'd be like, man, she could at least tell the dude, but she did tell him.
Right. She did tell him, and I'm not saying anything about that. I'm saying the fact that that's just like, okay, any type of decision you make. If my decision to do something is predicated on your response,
right?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If she wanted to, what happens is once he brought that to her, and this is my opinion, if she was on the same page with her boyfriend, the conversation with Lisa Nicole wouldn't have taken that dynamic. It's like, you know, so-and-so came back into my life. I think we can give it another shot, blah, blah, blah. Well, what about this new guy? What about him? That's a whole different dynamic. So, but when you're saying, having a conversation, yeah, so-and-so want to come back in my life, I think I should do it. But if so-and-so says, you know, he's committed to me, or he makes it seem like it's not a good move for me to go, then I won't go. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's juvenile, if you ask me. That's not, you're not making a heady decision. You talk about you know, transplanting yourself from Chicago to New York to see if this relationship will work this time, because the person that you so-called love, you know, got his act together, so to speak. Okay, so that part I thought was kind of lame or kind of corny. You know, she shouldn't have put the man in that trick bag. But then again, from his standpoint, are you honest with your feelings? And if you notice, they both were, that's why they kept missing. The communication wasn't there because they're not being honest with their feelings about each other.
Because they're protecting their hearts. And remember too, PK, to be fair, they're both in their mid-20s. So there's still like maturing, you know what I mean?
True.
25, 26, I mean, you know.
But some people know at 25 and 26.
Yes, this is true. But they were both guarding, they're both guarding their hearts. They both hadn't come out and say, hey, you know, you're my woman, you're my man. They're just feeling, they're still
each
feeling
other, but they haven't said it to other people.
Yes, they're still filling each other out, and because she don't want to seem like she crowding him and sweating him too quick. He don't want to seem like he's sweating her too quick. They're both trying to like walk this tightrope of like, I don't want to sweat him and I don't want to sweat her. I don't want to crowd them. So I want to pace this thing. I don't want to seem too eager. So you got to walk that tightrope of not seeming too eager, but still letting them know I am interested. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah. So he played it cool. He didn't like it, but he playing it cool. And so she's like, oh, you playing it cool. Okay, got it. You don't really care. Then she goes.
That's game.
It is. It
is. Still come back.
But they were both playing. Because he could have been forthright and said, no, I'd rather you not go. I'm digging you. Like, I don't want, I mean.
I don't want this to end. I know, but so it's hard. I guess sometimes it's hard for people to come to grips with their feelings and I don't know. But in that moment, you know, like I said, overall, I felt she shouldn't have put him in that trick bag. But it played out the way it played out, because she set it up to be that way. So she makes it out to New York, and of course, things are not flowing like she wanted to. The job offer is not just pouring in.
Let's talk about that, please.
Okay.
The scene with the prospective employer, client,
Mhm.
Can you make this a bit slicker? She's like, what do you mean? A comparative of slick. To me, that was an example of him imposing his European aesthetic onto her art.
Right.
Can it be less raw? No. Can your hair be less kinky?
Right.
To me, it was like, yeah, can you change your aesthetic for me? Make it more digestible. Can you make it more pop, crossover? To me, that's what that scene. How did that scene impact you? Do you feel differently?
Yeah, it was, to me, it was like, this is a BS rejection. You really can't, he couldn't really put in words what his objection to her work was.
Nope.
And even when she tried to have him define it, he couldn't define it. And if I say, if you can't define it, you don't know what it is.
Woo!
You know, and that's, you know, because, you know, prior to being in education, I was in corporate America, and they tend to speak in generality sometimes, and not being able to really talk about what it truly is. And a lot of time it's just BS. You know, you just don't want to deal with it. You don't understand it. You don't want to deal with it. So you come up with something like a term like he used, and once she pinned him to, okay, what do you mean by that? He couldn't give her anything.
Nope.
So that's very disappointing. And I can tell, you know, when you go home after a situation like that, your house and your home shouldn't be a place of conflict. Okay, and they both were in a bad place, I guess, with, you know, him at his job and her in her pursuit of employment. And there's nobody's there to tend to each other's needs at that moment. They just converge, and it's bickering, you know. So, as you know, it established the fact that it's not working in New York.
No.
It's not working. If it didn't work in Chicago, it's not gonna work in New York either.
A geographical location will not fix it.
No, exactly. And especially if, you know, if I'm going back to the communication aspect, if they're not good communicators, they're never going to deal with the issues that they should have dealt with when the relationship went south the first time.
Right.
So you can see how it will play out like that. You got to have a discussion. How's this going to look? You know, it's just like, just jump on the Amtrak and come to New York. You know, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How long are we going to do this? So none of that type of stuff seemed to have been at play. It was just an emotional, here, let's make a go at it. So that I'll let you take it over from once she returns.
It was like a comfort zone. It was familiar. Safety zone. But when she came back, she was hoping to see Larenz Tate at the spoken word poetry event. She ended up seeing him with another woman, but he didn't see her. And then she ended up reconnecting with her friend, Lisa Nicole Carson, and Wood, Bill Bellamy. And I guess at some point she's like, you know what, Bill, she gets a job doing like at Sears or something, doing like family portraits, something that's not artistic. It's not artistic, it's very corporate. Bill Bellamy comes in, try to woo her. And she is distrustful of him a little bit mostly. And then I guess she's like, well, I'm not with the man I really want to be with. You know, I guess I can hang out with you. It's not, what's it gonna hurt? Takes her out to dinner. He makes her laugh. But nothing's of substance between the two, really. It's very very surface.
Right.
And then this Negro decides to take her to a get together where Lorenz Tate and the rest of the gang or the rest of the friends are there. And she's embarrassed. And Lorenz Tate notices he's mad at her, and he's mad at Bill Bellion, but he kind of like, I can see this coming from this dude.
Right. You can expect it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is this dude. He's a shyster.
And that was his moment. That was his moment. Here I am with your babe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so funny because when she's like, I need you to take me, meet me outside. I need to talk to you right now. You can take me home. He's like, no, I'm not taking you home. What's the problem? You knew he's going to be here.
Right.
It's like, she was just a pawn. It was, come back to chess. It wasn't even about Nia Long. He didn't care. Right. He didn't care about her. Yes, he thought she was beautiful, but it was just like, it was an opportunity to one up Lorenz Tate. Nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly. And those type of dynamics between men really exist, and maybe some women too. But because you hear of young ladies sleeping with each other's boyfriends or husbands or whatever on the slide, but that's mostly on the slide. But this guy,
we don't do that too often.
This guy is like, that's his deal, and like you said, he can see it coming from him. But let's go back to Nia Long character. You can't let her off the hook. That's another poor decision.
I agree. You get no dissension from me.
Yeah, from my standpoint, I would have saw her home, but that was it. You're not thinking. You go somewhere on a whim. We establishing our relationship, whether we defined it or not. We are involved in something. Then you go back. Now you back, and now you with my buddy. You don't contact me. That's poor decision. Poor decision making. Regardless if she saw him with somebody, she saw him with somebody outside their orbit.
And who she didn't know.
Right. Outside their orbit. She gets somebody within his orbit. That's just common sense off limits.
No.
So now think about it. So what you doing? You running through the clique now?
Yeah.
So how are you gonna be perceived? That's just not thinking. So I thought, even though it was par for the course with the Wood character, that took some shine off of her character, in my opinion, because now I'm not looking at you as an intelligent, thinking woman.
Right, side-eye.
I'm looking at you like you kind of foul, There's
no way around it. That's what it is.
Yeah. So that, like, I was like, wow, we going here, we doing this is what we doing. Okay. Yeah. And then it's like the Wood character is so transparent to begin with. And it's like, how could you put yourself in that position? But that's what drove the movie. He was the antagonist. He had to get his lick in. And then how it would have been a good time for them to have like a little scuffle or something like that, or argument moment, but they bypassed it, which was, I guess, is cool on some level. And he tended to her needs, whether, she initially wanted it or not. But he still attended to her because he had those feelings.
So, made sure she got home safely.
I like that.
That was definitely a dumb move on her part. I can't even explain it away. I can't blame it on age, nothing. Like, it was just no, boo, what are you doing? And you don't really like this dude too.
Right.
Either way, like, it was just like, but I guess she was on low key trying to get him back for seeing a girl Lisa, who she didn't know. I think low key she was just, she definitely didn't want to go to a get together and be around him.
Right.
But yeah, I just thought that was Bill Bellamy was not a gentleman. He didn't even like make sure she got home safely. He didn't even care.
Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. I got your woman, dude. And now I could flaunt it in your face. You know, because remember at the table, he's like, oh yeah, I got a new job and I'm clocking in much time. Oh, really? You know what I mean? But that's what it's all about. And that's why that part really took me back to college. Because you know, that's how some guys operate. They want to see if they could get your girl. You know,
she was not intimate
really
with him.
But he don't know that though.
He didn't ask either.
He did. It was perfect. He said, "Why ask something you don't want the answer to? Ask a question you don't want to know the answer to."
See, as women, that writing was so good because we're like, why don't you want to know? Because we're dying to tell you, of course I ain't sleep with that corny dude.
Right, right.
Of course. But don't you want to know? Don't you care enough to want to know?
Mm-mm.
So that pissed, I'm like, oh Lord, this dude is not answering right. You're not answering right. You're supposed to say, yes. Did you sleep with him? No, of course I didn't sleep with him. He's corny. He's your friend. No way. But he just like, that just pissed her off even more. Then he said, you're wrecking my flow. And so this is the thing. She is not working. She's not working as an artistic photographer. She's dissatisfied with her professional life.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. You're dissatisfied with your professional life. Your fiance and you, that's a wrap. You tried it. It's not working. There's nothing left. This dude still got Lisa's number on the refrigerator. She calling at 5 o'clock in the morning. And more importantly, you're dissatisfied with where your career is, which has nothing to do with Lorenz Tate. That's on you. And it's not that you're not a wonderful photographer. It's just, it's not the season for you to connect to that job or that opportunity yet. That's all. Right. But you don't, in that moment, you just feel like, why am I, so you have that looming over, you have that pressure. And then this dude is acting cavalier about whether I slept with his friend. And he's saying, you reckon it's like, now if she feels like, I'm bothering you. My presence is bothering you. Mm-hmm. But if she was doing what she loved, had a really blossoming career, I don't know. I don't think if your career is really flowing, I just felt like she was just kind of like going through the motions.
Right. It's like when you got yourself together, you're not inclined for bullshit. And that's what that was. That, if I could say that, was that whole argument is one of those couples bullshit arguments. Somebody's dissatisfied with what's going on, and your contentment bothers them. So let me inject some bullshit into your life. Mm-hmm. And when he's like, I ain't got time for that. I'm not going down this rabbit hole with you. I'm staying in my lane. You wrecking my vibe. Mm-hmm. Now she got a problem. So what she's doing, and that's, I guess, in my book, I'm keeping score, but that's strike number 3. That's strike number 3. You like what I'm saying about the home. The home shouldn't be, antagonistic. The home shouldn't be a stressful place. We both should come here to decompress and get and face life together, not start another battle. Mm-hmm. And she's self-sabotaging, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. She sabotaged that relationship.
She did. Fooling around with this dude, this fiance. The thrill is gone. It's really gone.
Right. So then he told her to come get her stuff, and she you know, begrudgingly does, and then there's that awkward pause again. Are you gonna ask me to stay?
Exactly.
Instead of verbalizing, hey, I'm out of line. I maybe this is
Yes.
too much. Can we put a pause on it? Let's back up. No,
Yes.
it's
Nope.
that lack of communication rearing this
Protects
ugly
my
head.
heart. Mhm.
And I'm hoping that he feels
Cause she's
what
like teary-eyed and stuff.
right. It's like, you gonna let me leave? Yeah, peace. You know, you in here packing. You got all your things. You taking my key off your ring. Okay, finish the deal.
I was so mad at him.
I wasn't.
I'm like, tell her don't go. Don't go.
Look, if you don't want to leave, then don't pack your bag. That's the dynamic between men and women. We gonna always have those type of issues because we communicate differently.
Yes. Yes.
We tell y'all this in relationships, and y'all still don't listen. We are not mind readers. If I come in the house and say, baby, what's wrong? And you say, nothing, when it's actually something, guess what? There's nothing wrong with you. And I no longer am concerned or interested. Because you had an opportunity to be like, you know what? So-and-so in the cubicle had me do her work, and I'm prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
But once you say, oh, nothing, because you want me to probe more or figure it out myself, hell no.
Yes.
So those are the type of dynamics that was going on at this that kept them from realizing the relationship that they could have experienced together.
Yes.
It was delayed. It was delayed by over a year, because wasn't she gone for a year?
She left for a year. So are you saying, PK, that he was not at fault for anything?
I'm saying that particular stretch when she left after they, got back together after she went to New York and came back, that was all her. That was all her. Now, I don't like the way he talked to her, like he was kind of dismissed. Now, I didn't like that. Like when she asked him if he wanted a beer, and he was like, that I had a problem with that, waving up. It's like, oh no, babe, I'm in the middle of something. I'm fluent, not right now. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And
she didn't like that either.
Yeah. But outside of that, but then again, it's like he's in the middle of something. He's in his creative space.
Yeah. And she's not.
Right. So why are you interfering with? That's that bullshit.
Because she's not.
She's not. So he's like, if I'm gonna get this done, she can't be here. If you got these issues going on and you questioning how I feel about you, maybe you should leave.
But PK, why in the heaven is Lisa's number on the damn refrigerator? And we're back together.
Like he can't memorize that number.
No.
He don't need that number for reference. He don't need that. He don't need that number. Be like,
take it off the refrigerator.
Maybe it was forgotten that it was even
there. No commission, no sale, PK.
No, I'm serious.
He didn't forget to turn down the photograph of his ex-girlfriend when she came up for the first time.
True that. But that's a number, like on a seat with a seat amongst a lot of other Post-its. I thought that was very insignificant.
No, as a woman, no commission, no way. We're back together again, just like you turned down that photograph real quick before she turned around and saw, and y'all just started dating. So you actually could have kept it up there because you're like, oh, that's my ex, da-da-da-da. No. This lady has given you another chance. She got tickets to V103. Y'all went stepping and all that shit. And you forget to remove this Lisa. Turn your phone off. You know Lisa is sweating you. You pick up, first of all, you pick up the phone 5 o'clock in the morning. Lisa, listen, when we sleeping with y'all, when we in over here spending up your house, we ain't sleep.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asleep, PK. We may act like if that phone ring,
Mm-hmm.
we hear it ring. We may not we may not tussle and turn in the bed, but trust me, we hear that phone ring and we're gonna, if it better be your best friend Isaiah Washington or your mother or your mother.
All right.
If you don't say mom or hey man, and you say Lisa, what? And then you get up out the bed, you know what time it is, and you what?
I feel you, but if he says there's nothing there, it's nothing there.
That's that guy code. No commission. That's where he dropped the ball. Like, don't put your phone.
He didn't secure her place, is what you're saying.
That's why she distrusted this dude. You must be still seeing her. You got her number on your refrigerator. You still answering her phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning. You get up, you walk out the room. Because listen, I have a woman. You gotta stop calling me. Bye. Done. Oh, yeah, that's my man. I'm his woman. He not messing with her, but you get up. You know what time it is? Walk out and no. I have a lady. I'm in the bedroom with my woman. Stop calling me. We're done.
Right.
So that's why she couldn't trust this dude. And he got an attitude. Oh, you don't trust me? No, I don't trust you, Negro. Of course. But you don't see that.
I'm saying he said he wasn't messing with her, so he wasn't messing with her. Yeah. You know, people call at odd particular times sometimes.
So she would pick up the call, if Bill Bellamy called her and be like, hey, what are you doing? And she goes into the other room, he'd be cool with that?
But that's Bill Bellamy, you know.
No?
He doesn't.
Okay, fine. If it was some dude, if her fiance called, babe, why are you calling, Jonathan? She goes into his kitchen. He'd be cool with that?
I don't know.
No.
He was cool. Hey, he was cool with her leaving, so maybe.
No, he wasn't. But he wasn't cool. He played it cool. Right, so right. PK and I disagree on this issue.
I give him some fault in that situation, but not the point where it's like she really pushing buttons, because it's deeper than the phone number and the phone call on the the phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning. Her situation and her problems or issues with him was much deeper than that. Those was just segues into getting into a argument or a situation.
But the foundation was distrust. She saw when she came home when she returned to Chicago, she sees him hugged up on some woman. Then when they do reconnect, get back together again, her number's on the refrigerator, not to belabor this point, and he gets up and talks to her as opposed to saying right in the bedroom, I have a woman now, we're over, bye, stop calling me. So he contributed to her distrust. I'm just saying. But we can move on.
All right.
From that scene. So anyway, they have the big argument, and she gets the opportunity to go to New York to pursue a possible photography opportunity, and she gets it. Lisa Nicole Carson calls him and say, hey, she's going to New York. Maybe you want to see her off. And he's like, no, I'm good on that. But as he's by himself writing, when he's trying to write and he has writer's block because he's thinking about Nina, and he pushes the typewriter off the desk. I said, hold on. That's definitely some Hollywood-ish, because we ain't got money like that, PK.
Right.
Okay, we're not gonna destroy a typewriter. This is 97, folks. We're not gonna destroy a typewriter. We may hit the wall, kick the wall, because But we're not gonna destroy our typewriter. What do you?
And if you notice, he had a vintage typewriter at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't repair that. I mean, those places are long gone.
Yeah.
And to find the parts for something like that, so that
I was like,
and it's obvious that he says he's actually working on a typewriter as opposed to a computer.
right.
It's like he was trying to be organic with the process, you know, using the tools of old, so to speak, in order to craft his first novel. So so that was symbolic. Him destroying that typewriter was symbolic of some other things, you know, emotions and feelings that they both had suppressed feelings and that caused them to make mistakes. You know, that's the bottom line. It you know, the moral of the story, no matter what, in my opinion, is the communication between the people in relationships. It's like you're gonna get hurt regardless. And it's like I tell somebody, you can't get out of this life alive. So it's like, so what are you gonna do? You gotta live. So you can't be in a loving relationship and give yourself to somebody and not end up being scarred at some point. Okay, so you have to have some type of bravery about yourself. And if that means being vulnerable and being honest with your feelings and emotions, then that's what you do. Because I look at it like this: if it doesn't work out, at least you will be in your authentic self. And you can't attribute to like, if I would have done this, then maybe this would have happened. And that's where they both found themselves, at a place where they make all these mistakes in relationships and they have the regret, you know, afterwards. And a lot of times you don't get a second chance at love. You know?
Yeah. I agree with that. And ultimately, Nina comes back to Chicago, and she has written a poem. Darius has completed his novel. He's about to have a book reading party, and he dedicated his novel to her, titled Gypsy Eyes. And she goes back to the poetry spot where she met him. Right. And she's hoping to see him. She doesn't see him. For the first time, she gets on stage and recites her own poem about love, which is the opposite of his poem that he wrote about her.
Right.
And she's very vulnerable before the crowd. And he does hear it and feel it. But now he's really in a place to receive it because he has experienced love with her.
Exactly.
Yeah. And which makes it a nice full circle. I love that she is, in the end, is the one who delivers the last poem of the movie. And then as she's leaving, she sees the dedication because a patron has bought the book, sees that he dedicated it to her. I'm sure that touched her soul. But she leaves. I gotta go. I appreciate it. And then as she gets in the cab, about to, he calls over to her, and you want to take over, PK? What happened?
Yeah, and it's raining. He's on his motorcycle again.
Sexy again, yes.
Under the overpass because it's a downpour, and she stops and sees him prior to getting into the taxi cab, and without very little hesitation, she makes her way over to him, and they have their moment. You know, he lets her know that he, you know, was able to hear her poetry, and he liked it, and they had this, you know, brief discussion about they missed each other, they thought about each other, and they wanted to give it a second chance. And then it, I believe it ended with a nice kiss.
It did, but I want to say a line that I thought was everything. She's like, why is everything with you so urgent? And what is the line? Love is urgent like a...
Right. Right.
Bravo. That line is everything. I know one dude was like, oh, that's corny. But this same dude has never opened himself up to love. So of course that line is corny to him.
Right.
But I love that line because again, it's still bringing in swag, you know.
Mhm.
So
And also,
yeah,
he's saying what should have been said a long time ago.
yes, yes, yes. It took all of that for him to come to that
Mhm.
space,
Mhm.
to be vulnerable, really vulnerable
Right.
before her. And it takes bravery to be vulnerable before somebody, right? Because you don't know if they're going to
Yes.
reject you. But just so happened she reciprocated that same feeling. And it was just lovely. I love this movie. Um, it's very dear to my heart. And I'm just glad that, Theodore Witcher directed this film and used those actors to communicate the story. And it'll always have a special place in my heart.
Mhm. Well, I would like to say I'm glad you suggested this for our romance movie. As I was putting it, or I think what did I say, a girl film?
Yes, chick flick.
Chick flick, yeah, chick flick. So I'm glad you recommended this one. I got a chance to look at it again, and I really enjoyed it. Because like I said, I had it in my collection, but I never watched it, and I'm glad I revisited it. It was shot well. The story
Oh,
was
yes,
great.
yes.
It visually looked good, and I could see myself watching this again. Unfortunately, because of the sex and stuff, I can't watch it with my daughter because I kind of like to introduce her to good films. That can't, so I can't show her that one, but it's one definitely that I want to look at again, maybe next month or so, and see if I pick up any subtle nuances or something that I missed in this last viewing. But overall, I mean, I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do the rating system. So as far as the movie making of it itself, how would you rate it from a 1 to 5? Cinematography, sound, all of that.
I have to go with I say a 4.75.
Okay. The ensemble acting.
The characters were believable, authentic. Bill Bellamy's character was successful because it made me hate him. So I'm gonna have to say the acting was 5. Spot
And
on.
the screenplay, the writing.
Excellent line. I mean, the dialogue was superb. The
Okay.
dialogue was superb. So I'm gonna go with a 5 on that.
Okay, for me, 5. 5, 5, 5. Done.
All right. Straight 5.
Straight
Right.
5s, no discussion. Oh,
Okay.
and the soundtrack, 10.
Right. I might have to try to see if it's still available for download.
Yeah, that soundtrack is a 10. Bravo to the soundtrack. Lord have mercy. I can't listen to any of those songs without thinking about the movie. So
right. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I said, that song in the opening credits fit that black and white portraits. I mean, superb. I was like, wow. It really took you there. It really took you there. And like I said, that was a good contrast, between the rest of the film. So it was well thought out, well written, well shot, directed, the whole nine. It was a very, very good movie. Now that I look at it again, I say it's an underrated movie because I don't really see it played on like Netflix or anything like that. I see some other movies from the similar genre of lesser quality. So I'm just gonna say it's underrated for whatever reason.
I'm gonna say that in my circle, whether it be Instagram or YouTube or Amazon Prime, it's not underrated. Every time I see that movie is such a classic. If you go to YouTube or Instagram, you put up one scene from Love Jones. People are like, oh my God, this movie is excellent. I love this movie. This movie is fire. This movie is it's like, I know one person who dislikes this movie. I'm like one Black woman, she's a playwright.
Mm-hmm.
She don't like this movie. And I'm like, are you real? Give me a black card. Like what? But anyway, again, everybody is different. Everybody's different. But yeah, most people that I have, either strangers or people in my circle, we all think this movie is a classic film. No shade to the other films from the 90s, mm-hmm. or the ones who are like romantic dramas from the 90s, but none of them, I'm sorry, none of them compare. I'm just saying, in my opinion, none of them compare. None of them are considered classics like Love Jones. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. So I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion, us gushing over Love Jones. And if you've seen Love Jones, I know many of you have, please comment below this video how the movie impacted you. Do you love it? If so, why? And yeah, and again, Love Jones made Chicago, my city, PK City, look so good and made us so proud and continue to make us proud. So shout out to Theodore Witcher, Teddy Witcher, the director and writer of the great Love Jones. You guys have a great night and take care. Peace.
All right, take it easy.